Today, virtual reality feels like the future. Immersive worlds, realistic games, and digital universes that look almost real. But what if I told you that virtual reality was invented not in the 2000s, not in the 1990s, but back in the 1960s? Long before Meta, before Oculus, before the word cyberspace even existed, a small team of dreamers built the world's first VR headset. It tracked your head, displayed a 3D environment, and immersed you in a computer-generated world, all using analog circuits and mechanical sensors. They called it the Sword of Damocles, and it changed the course of technology, even if the world wasn't ready for it. This is the story of how virtual reality was born 30 years too soon, and why one of the most futuristic inventions of all time almost disappeared into obscurity. The dream of virtual reality didn't begin with video games. It began with something much deeper, the human desire to step inside imagination itself. In the early 1960s, computers were room-sized machines. They were loud, expensive, and could barely draw a circle on a screen. But a few pioneers saw something no one else did. They imagined computers not just as calculators, but as portals to new realities. Among them was a computer scientist named Ivan Sutherland. In 1963, Ivan Sutherland was a young researcher at MIT with a radical idea: that a computer could simulate any visual environment you could imagine. He built a system called Sketchpad, the first computer program that let you draw shapes directly on a screen using a light pen. It was the ancestor of every graphic interface, from Photoshop to CAD design to video games. But for Sutherland, this was only the beginning. He wrote a paper that would become legendary, The Ultimate Display. In it, he imagined a room where a computer could control everything the user saw, so convincingly that a chair would be good enough to sit in, and a handcuff would be good enough to imprison you. In other words, a virtual reality. Most people dismissed it as science fiction, but Sutherland decided to build it. In 1968, in a small lab at the University of Utah, Sutherland and his student Bob Sproul created something extraordinary: the world's first VR headset. It wasn't sleek or wireless. It was a giant mechanical monster, so heavy it had to hang from the ceiling like a science experiment. They called it the Sword of Damocles, because if the suspension broke, it would literally crush your head. Inside were 2 tiny CRT screens, one for each eye, creating a 3D stereoscopic image. It used sensors to track your head movements. So when you turned your head, the virtual world moved with you. Just like in modern VR. It was primitive, yes. The graphics were simple wireframes. But it worked. For the first time in human history, a person could look around a computer-generated world and believe they were inside it. The Sword of Damocles was decades ahead of its time, and that was its greatest curse. Computers in 1968 couldn't handle complex graphics. The headset's field of view was narrow, the frame rate was slow, and every image was drawn by a mainframe the size of a car. Even the military, who had funded Sutherland's research, couldn't justify the cost. The project was quietly shelved, but its influence lingered. Sutherland's work inspired generations of computer vision researchers and planted the seeds for the VR revolution to come. 2 decades later, in the 1980s, the dream came roaring back. Computers were faster, cheaper, and more powerful, and new inventors wanted to make virtual reality real again. One of them was Jaron Lanier, a dreadlocked visionary who founded VPL Research, the first company to sell VR headsets and gloves to the public. His inventions, the iPhone and data glove, allowed people to touch and see digital worlds. NASA tested it, game developers dreamed about it, and Hollywood fell in love. Movies like The Lawnmower Man and Tron promised a cyberspace revolution. But once again, the technology wasn't ready. The headsets were heavy, the graphics were crude, and the price? Over $250,000. The hype collapsed, and once more, virtual reality slipped into dormancy. It would take another 30 years, until the 2010s, for Sutherland's vision to finally come true. When a teenager named Palmer Luckey built the first Oculus Rift prototype, he unknowingly picked up where Ivan Sutherland left off. With faster processors, advanced motion sensors, and lightweight displays, virtual reality was finally possible. Today's VR headsets, MetaQuest, Valve Index, PSVR, all trace their roots back to that strange contraption from 1968. The Sword of Damocles may have looked like a mechanical nightmare, but it proved something incredible: that the dream of stepping into another world wasn't fantasy. It was engineering waiting for time to catch up. When Ivan Sutherland built his headset, people thought he was crazy, building technology no one could use for a future that didn't exist. But maybe that's what true innovation looks like: the courage to invent for tomorrow, even when today can't understand it. The first virtual reality didn't fail. It simply arrived 30 years too soon. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into tech history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the inventions that shaped our world. See you in the next one.